Hi, everyone. This is Henne, Artistic Director of Theater Dybbuk, and thanks for joining me. And, this is a talk we do. Some of you know this already, but do these talks every other Friday here on Facebook, and often are speaking about art and speaking about the making of theater and all sorts of connected topics, sometimes with colleagues and friends. And this week, I'm really fortunate to be here with Taso Papadakis. So, Taso, thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Aaron.
Yeah.
Great to be here.
So glad. And before we dive in, I just want to say a couple words. One is, once again, because sometimes people join late, this is Aaron Henne, Artistic Director of Theater Dybbuk, and I'm in conversation today with Taso Papadakis. And I just want to acknowledge, before we kind of get into the meat of the conversation, what's going on in the world today. Obviously, it's the anniversary of 9/11. That's on people's minds, and just want to give space for that and name that for people. And honor that history and the challenges of that. Two, I want to say we are both here in California, and as I think most of the country knows, obviously there's some really challenging things going on for people at the moment, with fires all up and down the coast and into Oregon and Washington, and we're of course wishing our friends and colleagues health and well-being. So just wanted to start there before we get into it. So thank you.
Yes.
So before I kind of start asking Taso questions, let me give you a little context, folks. Taso has been a longtime collaborator, really fortunate to have worked with him quite a lot. Taso has been the primary photographer for Theater Dybbuk since our inception, has shot almost every one of our shows. So if you go on our website and see the beautiful photos of our work, those are Taso's doing. In addition, we've collaborated on two film projects where we've created, led by Taso, some filmic works that are kind of riffing on the themes of our shows, but also have a life of their own. And Taso has really created some beautiful work with our ensemble around that. And we are also in talks about continuing that process of film work together. So Taso is really an important part of the team. And I feel like what's been remarkable for me, I want to say, has been to watch somebody really capture the essence of what we do, which is very difficult to do. This is live theater that's deep and dense and has many moving parts, and to be able to capture its core in a photograph is difficult. And I feel really privileged that we've been able to find that with you. So thank you, Taso.
Thank you.
Yeah,
It's a lot of fun and a great learning, discovery, adventure, and surprises along the way.
absolutely.
So it's wonderful. It's
Thanks.
wonderful. Yeah.
So I want to start with,
Okay.
Taso is a photographer, a filmmaker, a visual artist, often captures, like I said, performance work, not just ours, but dance companies, operas, live theater, a variety of other performance, and also makes films that kind of live in a lot of those areas as well, intersecting with those interests. And so I always like to begin with the sort of brief bio portion, so to speak, of like you telling us, rather than me reading your bio down in your credits, you telling us a little bit about your history and what brought you to the work you do, and how you got here.
Pleasure. Just a heads up that since I'm in the desert, there's a little bit of a lag occasionally. So if I am, there's a pause, that's what it is.
Cool.
But it seems to be coming back pretty quickly. Art bio. I'll give you the art bio.
I love it.
Yeah, I was when I was a boy, I was photographing on a Kodak camera, shot film. I photographed waves hitting rocks, big waves hitting big rocks, and I like the motion. I photographed my pets, which I loved. I was an athlete as well, a little bit later, and into my teens, and went to USC on an athletic scholarship. So that was very demanding and rewarding, but demanding. So it's almost like training like an Olympic athlete. It's many hours a day. I had a good time. It was a challenging time in the big business of college athletics. They paid for my school, which is wonderful. So I earned my education that way. So some injuries and so forth stopped my career. I had to let it go, which was a blessing in disguise because I walked from the PE buildings across the way to the theater department and became very happy there immediately with a great actor. I was very lucky to encounter named Ari Gross. Um, so like I walk in, Ari's there and he's teaching, and I just started studying theater dialogue. I was in the religious studies program as well as a major at the college I was going to. So, it was pretty so not like it was a good fusion, the theater and the religious program. So I finished my college education there in the theater department and the religious studies department, and got right back into photographing, like just immediately. I picked up a Polaroid camera like the day after I was like retired from athletics, started shooting Polaroid. Like it just was like, it just completely, took hold. And I looked at the Polaroid and I looked at my camera and I was in my skin in the situation, and I was like, this is my life. It was just so clear, and I said it out loud, and it was so strange because it was just this affirmation that came, and it was very natural. And it was kind of I didn't have to beckon it in, and so it's been from there. I sought out some mentors early in my 30s, wonderful mentors photographically, and just went in with them for years and opened a series of studios and learned lighting step by step by step, and just toiling and puzzling and puzzling and puzzling for years until I was satisfied. Started to become satisfied with what I was producing. So that was that's my bio, my art bio, and it's been, all this started happening. I started photographing again in when I was about 21, and now I'm well on. So some couple decades later, and still and I have so much joy because I know that I'm going to be able to do this or press record on a camera as long as I can breathe and see.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So that's.
So it's so interesting. Because of your history, I mean, it gets me thinking about, you have this unique combination, I think, of, making art, shooting from the time you were a kid, to being an athlete, to being a theater artist, an actor. You mentioned, studying with Ari Gross, and for those who don't know Ari is, you can look him up, Arye Gross. He's worked everywhere. You'll recognize him.
Wasn't he in Weird Science? Was he in? No.
No,
I don't think he was in Weird Science.
I don't think so.
But he was like the ultimate buddy, like with the best timing ever.
Yes.
Just I mean, the films wouldn't have breath. He just gave breath to everything. Like
Absolutely.
he kept everybody cool,
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
So I love
great
it.
artist.
Like, you studied with him, and then also, religious studies background as well. You bring together this really interesting combination of things, and we feel it in our work when you shoot with us, which I really appreciate. And so the question I have is, you do shoot, you bring all of that with you, and then you shoot a lot of different kinds of performance, often performance that includes a lot of kind of motion, right? You're shooting things like dance, our work, which rides the lines between dance and theater and multidisciplines. Opera, I know you've shot. You're often engaging with performance that is very active, lively. What's your approach? How do you approach these different things? Because to my eye, you're so inside of it. You really capture something about the inside of the work, not just its externals. And so I'd love to just hear you talk about when you're shooting, especially performance, how that works, how you go about it.
Well, thank you. That's a great question. How I go about it, how it works. Well, it works from here. And that's where I enjoy it. So I like to be close because I trained and I I had so much work on stage in the theater as a form of exploration, was exploring intimacy and in a safe space, studying theater. Before we leave the theater dialogue, I just wanted to say, give a shout out to the late Gar Campbell, who also is a beautiful director from the Pacific Resident Theater. And that's where I actually did most of my study, at the Pacific Resident Theater in Venice Beach with Gar Campbell, who was a great Eugene O'Neill director, and a great person. So I just wanted to give a shout out over the waves to Gar. Gar taught a lot of, we were talking about intimacy. Gar was, helped all of us in his classes connect with intimacy. I bring that, that's what I enjoyed most, being on stage, feeling it, and it just translates directly to the camera, with the camera. So I like to shoot very much like it's a film, over the shoulder, within earshot, almost, hopefully, where we can kind of see the image and enter it, and maybe even hear it, or have our senses ignited somehow, an invitation in. I feel very close and excited about the surprise of being close to the movement and the motion. And I like to photograph as if the camera were a character there that's receiving the energy. It's much more interesting for me on the job than being far away and trying to depict like a diorama, or trying to understand like the mise-en-scene and depict it with the proscenium correctly and everything. I'd rather just have it be, even the image be a little bit blurry, and get some emotion, some feeling, out of it, and really help tell the visceral story of what is happening in the life of the scene. And that goes for dance, and it just translates from opera into your work, which is mercurial language and movement, and very high stakes, very direct ignition and lightning in the work. So I mean, yeah, I'm going to be close to it. I mean, you all are nice enough to let me like be on stage. I like almost demand it. Like 99% of the time I get my way. And if I work with somebody new, I'm like, hi, thank you very much. You've called Taso Papadakis, one of the best performance shooters in Los Angeles, and I'm going to be on stage. Okay. And most of the time they're like, okay, do your thing. So I'm lucky, I've gotten to experience like the plays, like firsthand, the performances. So that's, I do what turns me on.
I love it. I mean, I'll share with those.
They pay me.
Yeah, I mean, look at that. How lucky, right? And you are really the best. And I have to say that to frame for people who are watching or listening, I will say, I want to share exactly what you just said. It is a remarkable thing to watch Taso shoot, because he's on the floor in between the performers. He's dodging and weaving as they're moving on stage. And first of all, it's a remarkable sensitivity, because I've never seen you actually almost get in the way of staging or blocking. You really do respond in the moment. But something you said that I think is so important to point out is that live experience is witnessed in a certain way, that even if I'm an audience member sitting out here and watching it happen there, I'm with you because it's live. Because a photo taken from out here can't have that same live energy. Actually, I think your photos, even though you're not necessarily capturing the mise-en-scène, as you said, the whole picture, your photos...
mise-en-scène.
Yeah, your photos are, I think, more closely capturing the life of the piece, because you are actually imagining what it feels like to be there with it, inside of it, as opposed to just to witness it. Because if I'm there with you live, I'm not just witnessing, I'm participating. So I think in a funny way, your photos, the fact that they don't stand back but are inside the piece, replicate the audience experience in some way more closely than a photo that just takes a photo of what the audience would see. It's a very interesting, it was an unexpected revelation I had the first time I worked with you, that you were somehow capturing the experience more closely by not trying to replicate an audience's view. So yeah.
Yeah, and you don't. I mean, I'm very lucky. Feel very fortunate that you appreciate that perspective. Um, so
Thanks. So, all right. So we've talked a little bit about photography and performance. I want to talk a little bit about your film work for a minute because,
yeah,
um, and I know especially over the last few years, that's an area you've really done more and more work in, and it's becoming a
yeah,
larger part of your portfolio. And
yes,
so I'd love to hear a little bit about the film work, how that operates, how it's different from and or aligned with the performance work. Tell us a
yes.
little bit about it.
Well, it's very much aligned with it. I think the way that I have to shoot. Well, I enjoy shooting, photographing the film work. I like being behind the camera. So up to date, I'm the cinematographer as well. I like the same relationships, as far as the focal distance to the performers, to the people who are bringing the work to life. Um, uh, the countenance is different as somebody, with camera. Um, Shooting photo we can be a little bit more staccato, in our and film work is holding tight. You have to hold attention. It's more of a tai chi, feeling. It's more, the energy is more legato. It's a calm and a focus that is a little bit of a different place in my person, when I make the images. Light's the same. The digital sensors take light the same way, uh, relatively, in a still photo and in a moving frame. And what a pleasure, what a delight to see the pictures move.
Hmm.
You know, what a challenge to be able to string, to have the task, or the desire to string these images together to hopefully connect in, some kind of time, space, story.
Yeah.
There's something to say, there for me. I feel like there was a refreshed authenticity all of a sudden that came in,
Hmm.
very readily, when I started to put, the picture started to move for me.
Right.
They've been moving for other people for a long time, but when they started to move for me, it was like, oh, this can get real, in a way that feels gives meaning to, to the work. So I did that get
Absolutely.
at it a bit?
It did. And so my question for you then connected to that
Thank
is
you.
is um, often when you're photographing performance, especially, although you have a wide and broad portfolio of other kinds of photography as well, which I want to say, but although
Yeah.
when you're often photographing performance, it's often led by other artists, right? Like you're coming into Theater Dybbuk, we are collaborating, but you're also capturing something that we as artists have created, and you are then putting your artistry in conversation with it. However, in film, you're often leading the way. And even though you're in collaboration with other artists, sort of you're the lead artist on the project. As opposed to, being in service of another's vision. How does that work? What's the difference in approach that you take, or when you are leading as opposed to sort of revealing that which already exists?
Well, I think they both go to the same place. They both go to the imagination place.
Mm.
I think that it's a wonderful privilege to be able to plug in to a something in development, that there's been rehearsal, there's passion, there's investment, there's blood, sweat, and tears, to it's like plugging into something that's has been generated, and the current is flowing, and it's the imagination is, the images, the visualization is, more or less pretty immediate. Cooking up something myself, there's some, uh, well, it's there's a lot of, areas where it's a filtering process, as you know. and there's some questions that come up which we beckon and invite in just about ourselves. There's areas of realization and questions that we have to face. That if I do something that I have to face questions, and I think that those become immediate and influence my imagination in the personal projects. I've been really fortunate. I'm careful who I work with, and I'm choosy because I know what I'm looking for. But I'm the like know it when I see it kind of so far, in my viewfinder, But I mean, I look for a certain voice somehow, some certain kind of, I don't know what it is, but there's this spirit that I just feel. And we're all like this. This is such a pleasure. One of the pleasures of being alive is to be able, like, not just something exactly like me, that I can understand, and that's familiar, but just something that feels simpatico, something that feels like it's in accord, like the tuning forks are right. And I've been just fortunate to work with people that are just off the charts fantastic. I've seen things through my viewfinder, through my camera. I mean, much just like, just as I did when I was just, it's the same when I was young. I've seen things that are unbelievable.
Yeah.
And it's a great teacher.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, just working personal projects is great. Collaborating is great. Collaborating, it takes a lot of finesse. Sometimes, in the production end and the back end, dealing with other artists, that's a challenge. To connect it up, to make sure everybody's getting their fair share, not getting cut. There's music, there's lots of things to consider. So it's people skills, it's production skills, and I'm getting versed in that as well, which is good. Sometimes, when we're doing our own production, we can just put our flag in the ground and just be like, aha, that's the way it's going to be. But but it's good. It's good humanistic skill to collaborate.
Yeah. I'm so glad you brought that up. I think it's something that sometimes people, when they're speaking about these art forms, forget, is that fundamentally, half of the work is about people skills. It's about understanding. It's not all the work, but it's half the work. Is when we're working in performative ways, these are collaborative forms, and understanding the sensitivities around that, and also understanding how to navigate different expectations, right? Like when we've collaborated, especially, when it's been on film, right? We have a very open collaboration, but I also understand that you are the lead artist on that film project. And that kind of clarity of expectation allows for an easier collaboration, because we actually understand who's playing what role. And I think it's important to recognize that.
Yes, I believe. I mean, I've witnessed and been a part of collectives in the theater, and also visual projects, where like it's kind of like very much a collective experience. And there's usually somebody with the idea says, well, we're not going to have a director. We're gonna see what happens. And I in my experience, mostly what happens is dissension and upset, and a kind of a work that doesn't get to the place, I don't know, that was longed for in some way. I think that somebody needs to steer it, and I think I believe in projects where there's a leader, and it helps for safety for everybody. It helps hold space for it.
Yeah.
So
thinking about that, about sort of the conversation between leadership, isolation, collaboration, what is joint generative, and what is somebody steering the ship, that got me thinking about, you mentioned at the top of the conversation, you're out in the desert, right? You're out there, relatively isolated, probably maybe even more so right now, and doing a lot of visual artwork, painting and such, that isn't about collaboration that's actually is about, at least my outside perception, you in collaboration with the elements, but not with
Yeah.
necessarily other human beings. And I'm curious about how that's going and how that
Thank you.
differs from or is the same as the other work you're doing where you are in collaboration and capturing performance, because that's a whole other aspect of what you do. And so would love to hear a little about it.
Thank you so much for asking. I uh, I'm painting large scale. Um, it's it's not a blank canvas for long, and a lot of the human beings I think that I want to dialogue with, or the things that are coming right out. So they're just all showing up. So I have a lot of company really fast, and I see what, how I want to color them. So lots of faces. I mean, surprisingly enough, I'm a portrait artist, so lots of faces, lots of profile. It's very interesting. It's very direct at shining light on what is going on with my mind and my sentiment and my propensity emotionally. Like, it just shows me right away. So I really haven't encountered very many things that have been so direct. And it makes sense to me that there's not software in the way. There's no software, there's no USB, there's no sign in, there's no enter your PIN number. There's it's just it's the elements, which I'm painting outside. I have my easel outside. I love my easel. And it's just, of course, it's the pigment, it's the brush, and there's the canvas, and I have to like keep it from flopping in the wind. And if I get it down, that's really all the technical I need to do, and then I just feel. And so I'm very, very encouraged by it, and it's helped my crops right away, photographically. It's helped my just, it's good synergy. So I'm just on. I felt like I kind of I felt like I indeed uh, uh, like poked my oar on the shore, and like I'm out, like I'm out on the I'm out on the horizon now with it. So that's it. Good wind, and here we go. It's an amazing practice, and respect for the painters. Respect for the painters.
Yeah.
Respect. I've been standing in front of them since I can remember, adoring them. Just it's real. It's the real deal. It's a great thing. So I have to also put them away and not judge them, and just roll them up, and when they're done, right, there's no space left, or they're finished, or you have to bow out, sign off, and go on to the next. So it teaches a lot about acceptance and release and renewal. I mean, it's amazing. Yeah.
There's an old saying that a play, thinking as a playwright, similar thing.
Yeah.
That a play is never finished; it is abandoned. Right. And this is a similar thing where it's like, this is what I can see now. This is what is open to me now. Or it's imperfect, and actually that's its beauty, right? I have to sort of surrender to that imperfection. If I try and chip away at every bit of imperfection, I'm going to lose the picture altogether. So I think it's a good reminder. I love that. Like, at a certain point, going, it's rolled up, and that's the work that happened in this moment. Something else on my mind, and we have time for a couple more questions, so I'm gonna go this route for a moment. Is I'd love to hear you talk about a little bit. I've noticed in your pieces, your film pieces, and often in the way in which you capture theater and dance, that a lot of what shows up is this dialogue between the sort of emotional and the guttural, the animalistic, the kind of viscera is present. There's also this dialogue between beauty, like clearly beautiful, you shoot beautiful work, but combined also with a human messiness that sometimes cuts across that beauty. And there's also a lot of dialogue between kind of community and isolation that I see in your work, where there's often a lot of sort of people alone, but then also kind of taken in by whole groups. That's outside observations of what I've seen of your work. And I just love to hear you talk a little bit about your thematic interests or how they show up in your work, especially given your background as both a performer, religious studies, athlete. Like, I imagine all of that is in the mix. So just any of your thoughts about your thematic explorations.
It's so nice to talk about my thoughts. Well, let me think. Well, gee, no, the Greek dramas, viscera, complete. I saw Iphigenia of Tarsus in underneath the Acropolis, and one the ancient theater. I can't remember the name. I think the theater of Dionysus. I think it is right underneath the Acropolis. Iphigenia of Tarsus, and some Greek tragedies in Greece. Really, I was like, oh, that's where that comes from. It's like that's just everything delivered right from the hara, right from the energy garden, right from like right below the navel. Like they're actually like speaking from there. So that, and that's part of like my culture as a Greek American person, and the delivery and the heart and the passion, the animalistic feelings, that's coming out a lot in my painting. I could see them. They're showing up. They have teeth. It's like, whoa, so yeah, the messiness. Yeah, life's messy. And life also has order. So that's where the beauty comes in. There's lines there, and there's the way that the light can hit that edge, or can hit the sentiment of the look, the intention of the look, and that's very, very specific. So it's like kind of picking a point of out of the whole, and expressing it. And I like those moments, and I like film for that reason, because we can show the motion of the confusion, or we can show the conflict in motion, and then it's the moment. And there's great beauty in that, even in our lives where we're having torrential challenges, and there's grief. There's moments there that are very poignant, that have tremendous order and proximity somewhere, like to our everything that makes sense to us. It's so that's in art. I mean, that's why we look at it. I just, like I keep making the effort to wanting to make that, and once in a while it's really good. And a lot of it is just approaching, to keep going, and like, thank you for your words back on my work. I don't like to think about it very much. I just like to do it more than think about it. But it helps to hear, because in the process of doing it, is like it helps it helps things come out. It gives them sanction somehow. Once in a while someone drops a good line, it's like, yeah, it's like gives them avenue. So they need to be encouraged and interpreted sometimes, through other people. So yeah, I mean, let's face it, we kind of do it for to share.
Sure. Right.
We do it to be seen. I mean, I do it for myself too, like so much, but it's not all that. So, and being isolated in the collective is basically how I live, because right now I'm living very isolated out in the high California desert, and then I'm coming into the collectives, often huge theaters and operas, like in the middle of their last dress rehearsal, and it's like walking into a small metropolis.
Right.
So there's been that undulation in my life for quite a while, and doing a lot of study with the meditation practice and so on, coming like in and out of that. So, to help life out, meditation practice to help life out. So there's been a lot of, circles of attention, like Stanislavski said, like, the inner circle, the middle circle, so yeah, I like to play with that. Try to be intimate with all of them.
Yeah. So try. I mean, a last question I have for you, given given everything you just said, and I think you may have already even touched on it, but I like asking everyone I speak to this because
Yes.
I want to acknowledge the moment we're in.
Yeah.
We're in this moment, right, of the pandemic, and whatever isolation
Yes.
you might normally be experiencing might be heightened because that coming into the metropolis experiences are not happening at the moment for you. In addition, obviously, there's all sorts of considerations I brought up at the top. What's going on in our states right now. There's, of course, the ongoing fight for racial justice in the country. There's a variety of things happening, and I'd just love to hear your thoughts as an artist on what that's meaning for your work in some way, shape, or form. Whatever you want to share about that.
Well, most just to keep heart open and to understand that there's a lot of suffering right now, and to just we're right in the middle of this. It's hard to evaluate, but we need to treat each other with kindness as much as possible, and that starts here. Yeah. And it's responsibility. We're getting a clear message to wake up, and we have to pay attention. It's whether we like it or not. I think that it's our duty right now in this time to pay attention. And it starts with me. It's a very difficult message to take in. It's overwhelming, but I do my best to wake up every day and adjust my attention to what's at hand, and just be ready to be open and be ready to help as much as possible. We need to love each other. I mean, simply.
Yeah. Thank you, Taso.
Yeah. Thank you.
So
thanks for having me.
Of course, thanks for this. And so a couple things for people who are watching. One is, if you do want to see Taso's work, one is obviously you can go on the Theater Dybbuk website and you'll see lots of his photos. But Taso, this is the shameless self-promotion part.
Yeah.
Tell people watching where they can check out your good work.
Please. I have a website. It's tasophoto.com, and there's a lot of fashion work, and it's nice and poppy and fun. It's a lot of good pop art. And you can see and you can click to live performance and see some of my performance work through the years, including beautiful pictures with dybbuk. And my paintings slowly but surely will make their way online in galleries, and hopefully an installation soon in Palm Springs galleries first. So they're very large scale works, and they need curating, and they need to time to develop. But I'm very enthusiastic. So maybe a very large scale painting show with some video installation that talks to the paintings, and some good music and some fun. So eventually when we're okay, when we're good, so that's I keep that in mind as a dream and an aspiration, for healing. And it'll someday we'll be able to do that again altogether. So I'm working on that. So Aaron, the first show that we worked together on, that was Cave, right?
No, it's so funny. All right, I'm glad you brought this up. This is
great.
No,
what was it? I'm trying to remember.
So the first show we did was a co-production, pre-Theater Dybbuk. First show you shot was a show that I wrote and co-directed with Kate Hutter, now Kate Hutter Mason, at LA Contemporary Dance Company, called Body Mechanique. And
at the gallery off of Robertson.
Yep, at the Glass Garage Gallery in West Hollywood. And it was a dance theater piece that I wrote a bunch of monologues from the perspective of inanimate objects. And it was 2 actors, 5 dancers doing a whole performance that used those monologues. That's right. And that was the first time we met. That was 2009. And you shot that show. And from there on, we were working together. The
actors were out in the street with megaphones. It was great. That was great.
That's right. So the show started, everyone, with actors out on the street on megaphones kind of entering the gallery. That's right. That's right.
And there was like lifts. There was like lifts, and there was $15,000 paintings like 5 feet away, and there were people being lifted into the into the rafters.
That's exactly right. I remember as a director and producer watching one of those lifts when somebody like kicked their leg back and it got like very close to like the $15,000 or $20,000 painting. And I was like, and it was so sweet because the gallery owner, Henry, who is a wonderful, wonderful man, he said, "It's okay, we have insurance." And I was like, "Oh, you're so kind," you know? That was a remarkable, I mean, what a generous, I remember too, for him to say, "Yes, use my gallery for this work with these beautiful paintings around you." It was an amazing experience. So that actually reminds me, for those who are watching, in 2 weeks, I'll be speaking to Kate, who is the founding artistic director of LA Contemporary Dance Company and who now runs an organization called Stomping Ground and is still on the board of LA Contemporary Dance Company. She's who I'll be speaking to 2 Fridays from now. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Legend. Kate Hutter Mason, legend.
Indeed. So please join. You'll really hear and learn some things.
Art legend.
Yes, indeed. Taso, such a pleasure. And we've spoken a bunch over the last few months about some projects and other things, but I think it's the first time we're seeing each other face to face. So it's really in months. So it's so lovely to see you, and I'm really grateful for you taking the time. And again, in case you didn't hear, www.tasophoto.com, and you can really check out his amazing work. And Taso, stay well. And
thank you. You as well.
So thank you. And everyone out there, stay as safe and healthy as possible. I know there's a lot going on, so please be well. And we'll see you in 2 weeks. Taso, thank you again.
Thank you, Aaron.
All right, take care.
Have a nice day.
Bye. You too. Bye.
Bye.